You know, it didn't matter what the problems were. I remember where they did. I often talked about, when John talked about two Americas, how you could always tell two Americas. You didn't need, even if you didn't know it in your own life, all you need to do was drive by a few elementary schools. And you'd see those playgrounds, and some with nice, shiny equipment on the playground, and others that looked quite different from that. And that was your picture, your visual for what two Americas really is. And if it wasn't going on the outside of the school, you're pretty sure it wasn't going on the inside of the school. John saw that too in our hometown. We lived in a neighborhood, was reasonably affluent, with a PTA that made certain that there was the shiniest equipment out there on that playground. Not enough for him. And he made certain that the playgrounds that were in the economically disadvantaged areas also had those same kind of benefits. And when he saw those problems, he didn't just nod sympathetically. He went out and did something about it, helped raise the money to make certain that those schools that didn't have affluent PTAs also had those same kind of benefits. That's the kind of, these are small ways, but they're really indicative of the kind of person he is. Some of them are not so small. I mean, what he tried to do in the Senate, what the difference he made in people's lives were pretty big. But how much better it would be if we had that kind of a doer, that kind of a person who translated that whisper into the big changes we needed. If we gave that man a really big paintbrush, how great would it be for all of us? And that's what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to think about, and to ask your neighbors to think about, if they had among these candidates to whisper in the ear of just one, and they wanted something done, in whose ear would they whisper? I just don't think there's any question about it. It's not that you don't have people whose hearts are in the right places. It's not going to be enough. You're going to need a fighter, someone who does not give up, whatever the obstacle is on the other side, does not give up in making certain that the answers that we talk about become reality. And that's what he's been about. And that's why my job, honestly, is easy. So I want to find out what your problems are, the issues that are on your minds, and make certain that I tell you what it is John would do about them. I should know most of them. I hope to know most of them. It's nice to see some friendly faces in the crowd, and you all should feel free to ask questions. Though I know that you're convinced. If you're not convinced that John is the candidate, I hope that you will, in particular, raise your hand and ask a question that stands between you and supporting him, because that's what I'm here to do, is to earn your support for John, because of his positions and because of his character. So now it's your turn to decide what we're going to talk about. I don't like giving speeches anyway, so glad to be through with that part of it. So, yes, ma'am.
What would John do to address the inequities in subsidies for farmers, like take them away from the factory farms and give them back to the small farmers?
Yeah, what would John do about the inequities in farm subsidies? John would limit farm subsidies to $250,000. This would take care of most family farmers. So we would no longer be subsidizing agribusiness. The problem with subsidizing agribusiness is, of course, they're looking at the profit line. They're making decisions then based on where the subsidies are as opposed to where the needs are. And honestly, there's a real difference, those of you who are not farmers, there's a real difference between the way agribusiness treats the land and a family farmer treats the land. A family farmer treats the land as this is a precious legacy that they get to have for a short period of time. Agribusiness, it's an asset that once it's used up, they can move on to someplace else. They don't feel the loyalty not only to that individual land, but they sure don't feel it to the contiguous lands in the way that family farmers do to their neighbors, understanding the interrelationship, of course, in terms of the longevity of the use of their land by the treatment of the neighbors. So those kinds of issues, in addition, make it important that when government's deciding what activities they're going to support, it's the family farmers. They're not only their activities, their business, but their allegiance to the land is something that we want to make certain that we are encouraging. There are people who will say we don't need any farm subsidies at all. Don't think that's a legitimate issue. Also, this is the fabric of who we are as a country. I mean, we are still though sometimes you have to remind Democrats of this, we are still largely a rural country, and we need to make certain that we're paying attention to rural America. So one of the things that distinguishes John, I think, from the other candidates, John has an actual rural agenda. He is the only candidate on either side, I think, who comes from a rural background, so he doesn't need to be told what the issues are. He's seen them happen in the communities in which he's grown up, in the Southeast, the rural communities in which he has grown up. And so his policies are address not only sort of the needs the rest of the country has with respect to agriculture, but the real needs of the rural communities. And anybody who doesn't know his rural policy, I ask you to please go to the website and see it. I'm about to sneeze, so if I get a question, I can sneeze while y'all do it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, a lot of blesses.
Absolutely. That's right. If there were any devils trying to sneak their way in, they were clearly thwarted by all of those bless yous. Isn't that what they're supposed to do, the bless yous, to stop the devil taking advantage of your weakness in a moment of a sneeze? Had you ever heard that?
Oh, yes.